On this tube, I've got a zipper at the front end. It's fairly small, so the question is, how am I going to fix this? That's what I'm going to cover in this episode.
Welcome to Advanced Construction Videos, where we show you how to tackle rocketry building techniques and more. On our website, we sell kits, motors, building supplies, and electronics. So come and learn, shop, build, and fly when you visit us at apogeerockets.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Van Milligan from Apogee Components. Today I'm going to try to repair this zipper right here at the front of this tube. And it also has a little bit of delamination of the paper on one end. It's kind of like the rocket, it's zippered and then it also hit hard on the ground. So what I think I'm going to do this in kind of two steps. One is I want to trim off just maybe about 1/4 of an inch of the tube to get rid of that delamination. And then I'm going to try to fix this zipper. Now this technique that I'm going to show for fixing that zipper probably only works on a thick wall tube like this one here. This is a lock or Aerotech tube, and it's pretty thick wall, and I think I can do it. If it was a thin wall like a BT80, this technique probably wouldn't work. And then what I would have to do is actually cut off the entire section that's zippered and then splice on a new tube. And we've done a video on that in the past on fixing a zipper, and that would probably be the technique that I would have to use. But for this one here, I'm going to try to repair it so that I don't have to cut off the whole front end of the tube. So first I want to trim off this edge, and I'm going to take the shock cord and I'm going to just stuff it into the tube just to get it out of the way. I had a paper towel here to hold it in place. I just take a piece of paper towel and just shove that in there, and that holds that shock cord so it doesn't fall out every time I roll it over. Okay, so to cut off the front end, I need a long strip of paper, and you can see it. You only need one straight edge. This one is definitely not straight. And some masking tape. And I'm going to wrap this around, and I just want to make sure that when I wrap it around, that when it overlaps here, that edge aligns, and that way I know it's nice and straight. This is the way you would trim a tube that's a big, like a large diameter tube. So once it's taped here, I also want to keep it from moving back and forth along the tube, so I'll tape it down here. So that's the area that I'm going to cut off, and I'll first mark it so you can see what I'm doing here. So that's going to be my cut line. And just make sure, roll it around, make sure that line is straight. Next, I'm going to take a hobby knife. I'm going to cut it off. So I'm going to get out my glasses so I can see. I'm going to leave the paper there to kind of guide my knife. Okay, so I've cut that off, and then you can see better here where it was delaminated right there. And that's what I want to get rid of. See, it's just kind of split along the layers of paper. So that's kind of why I wanted to get rid of that. Otherwise, you have to soak it with CA and try to smash those layers back together. And it's possible. It's just that I'm lazy. Okay. Now this edge here may not be perfectly straight, and so I would take a sanding tee like this and flatten it out. Now this sandpaper is really not rough enough, but I'll come back and make that flatter later. Now this zipper, I've got to have it so that when I put the nose in, it will still slide in and out pretty easy. And the best way to do this would be to layer a Band-Aid on the inside. But the problem is now you're reducing the inside diameter, and that would make the nose cone not fit very well. So what I'm going to do, since this is a thick wall tube, it has several layers of paper there. And so, let me see if I can draw this. And so hopefully you can see it. So hopefully you can see that. I've got kind of a rectangle there. And what I'm going to do is try to peel up the paper in this area so that then I can put a Band-Aid over the top of it. And the Band-Aid I'm going to use is fiberglass cloth, which is pretty easy to work with. So first, I'm going to take my hobby knife and I want to score along that paper, along the line that I just drew. And this will mark the edges. I don't want to go all the way through. I probably only want to go about half the thickness of the tube. And I'm doing this upside down, so it's kind of hard for me to do. Okay, so now I'm going to stick my knife in there and try to grab an edge and lift it up. You can see it's starting to come up. I wish I had a pair of tweezers, but I have these, so I'll just try to lift it up so I can show you what's going on here. See there? I'm peeling it up, and I want to do both sides. Okay, so I don't think I'm deep enough, so I'm gonna have to go again. I just don't want to go all the way through the tube because that would be just like having another zipper. Hopefully you can see that in there. Okay. All right, so I'm about halfway through all the layers. And now I'm going to put my Band-Aid on it from the inside. And for that, like I said, I'm going to use fiberglass cloth. And you can probably find some fiberglass cloth at a hardware store. This one, I don't remember where I got it, but I like it. It's fairly thin. So I'm just going to cut off. As you can see, it's quite stringy. Now this has to fit inside of there, so you're going to probably trim and trim and trim until you get it right. Okay. Okay, so I think that's going to be thin enough. You can see all these strands. This is the one problem with fiberglass is you get these hairs. Okay, so I'm not going to cut it. I'll trim it later once it's down. So to put it on, I'm going to use thin super glue and have a plastic bag ready. So first lay it in its cradle. Okay, and then take your super glue, just put a drop on. And this is going to kick off pretty fast, so take your plastic bag and then press it together. Make sure it's pressed down. You can feel it coming through because I'm sticking. Should have brought gloves. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to saturate it a little bit more because I'm seeing white. And that means that all the fibers aren't saturated with the super glue. Okay, I'm going to take some super glue accelerator and hit it, and so that should be nice and dry. Now I want to test fit my nose cone, make sure it goes on. It's still nice and easy. That's good. Okay, so now it's structurally repaired. Now it's cosmetic that we have to fix. Okay, so first I'll cut this off. And once you get it saturated with CA glue, it should cut pretty easy. Just like that. And again, these little fibers, you'll sand those off. Got fibers going everywhere. Now, if you feel any rough edges on the inside, you can take some sandpaper and sand those down. Mine is pretty good. I'm only feeling the edges because my fiberglass cloth is thinner than the cardboard. That's going to be okay. Okay, so now structurally it's strong, but we still have this gap right here. And for that, we're going to fill that with epoxy clay. And I've got the Aves Studio called Fix It. I like this because it gives you a lot of working time. So I'm going to mix that up. And this will take me a couple of minutes to mix up. But it's a 2-part clay. And you take an equal glob of both sides, and then you just knead it together until it's uniformly mixed. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll just be right back. I've got my epoxy clay mixed up right here, and I'm ready to fill this right here. It's kind of rough on the surface, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to sand that down first. I can kind of tell that like this side here is raised up a little bit more than that side because when I sanded it, I was sanding down into the tube on this side, but not on that side. So try Trying to make sure it's clean. And then I'm going to take the epoxy clay and smush it in there. Now this is, I'm going to have to let this harden and then sand it down. So it looks bad right now. And even when it's cured, it's going to look bad until I sand it down. I'm just trying to press it in there, take off as much of the excess as I can so I don't have to sand so much. Okay, so right now it looks pretty bad, but I'm going to let it harden and then I can sand it down. And you can also, if there's, if you're really low, you can fill it up on this side too. I think I'm just going to leave this alone. Don't mess with a good thing. Because otherwise, if I put too much epoxy in there, then I have to sand that out too. Well, I'll show you how to do it. So you just lay it in there and flatten it out. I probably will have to do a little sanding on the inside. And you can test fit your nose cone in there. Just make sure it fits. And spin it around just to flatten out that epoxy a little bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to let this harden, and then I'll come back and we'll sand it, and that will be it. And then that will fix that zipper. So I'll be back as soon as this hardens. At this point, the epoxy is hard. I was test fitting it and everything seems to work, which means that I didn't build up a lot on the inside. This is really strong now, but it's not very flexible. So cardboard is flexible here, but not right there where I put my patch. So at this point, it's a matter of sanding it down. So I got I had some rough grit sandpaper. Here we go. I'll start out with rough and then work down to the smoother stuff. Okay, so this gray right here is the primer. So this is what I'm working on right there. You have to be careful. Don't get too deep into it. It's going to have a little bit of a raised area right there. I can't, because it's inflexible. Yeah, you can just feel that, especially right here at the tip. So that's just something you're going to have to live with. It's a little raised area. What it really needs is some kind of decal to hide that. But unfortunately on this rocket it's all white, so I don't have a decal to hide it. So you'll just have to live with it. It's going to have a little raised area, like I said. So that is the process. And remember again, make sure that that front edge is flat. So I'm using a sanding tee, which you can get here at Apogee Components. And that allows you to make sure it's nice and flat. Just, kind of rotate the tube as you're going around so that you don't have a high spot in case you put more pressure on one side than the other. All right, so at this point, the rocket is basically ready to repaint. We've been refurbishing this rocket in 3 episodes, or maybe it was 4 episodes. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but it's almost there. It's just repainting now, and then it'll be showroom new again. So this has been the Apogee Rocketry Workshop. May the winds be light, may the skies be blue, and may all your rockets fly straight and true.